Greetings everyone. Welcome to Top Tier Tips, your prime spot for tips and trips to help you level up at Dead or Alive 5. Alright, this week we got on display the gorgeous Halloween 2015 costumes designed by Team Ninja and by fans like yourself, just for the low price of a shitload of money. I mean, this well, I just got a Momoji and Ayane display here. This check out Ayane's here, like pretty amazing though, huh? Got those metal pointy hoodie over here though, so if you get a chance, just check him out and help support Team Ninja. Oh, but anyways, let's get on with this week's topic. All right, so last week for the past couple sessions, we were going over pressure and wall pressure respectively. This week we're gonna finish off what I dubbed the pressure series, and we're just gonna close it off with obviously with a pretty important aspect of pressure, OKIZEME. All right, so let me just give you the rundown. All right, so naturally, most fights start out with both combatants on their feet, staring each other down before their engagement begins. But as the battle progresses, one of the opponents will inevitably get their ass knocked down to the pavement, leading to the next phase in the fight, referred to as OKIZEME. All right, what OKIZEME is well, first of all, it's commonly abbreviated to Oki, which is the Japanese term just simply for ground game. This refers to when the fight is taken to the ground as a result of one of the opponents getting knocked onto their back. So, just simply, if someone gets knocked down, they end up getting knocked to the, or the opponent or one of the characters get knocked to the ground, and then they're going to be, and then they have to end up pretty much fighting from the ground. So generally, I mean, with the way how the AI is set up, they just get up right away. But if you end up see, if you just end up set it just to have them record anything, then the opponent ends up staying down longer. But just to continue on, obviously when you get knocked into your back, it's a very uncomfortable and unfavorable position to be in. So obviously if you get knocked to the ground, you're put on the defensive. And your goal is to try and get back to your feet safely as soon as possible. Alright, at a basic level, the Oki in DOA5 usually involves the aggressor scoring a knockdown, then the defender choosing to mix up their aggressor with a mid or low wake-up kick to get back in the fight. Alright, just I'll show you what different wake-up kicks, the two wake-up kicks are. There's a low wake-up kick, and mid wake-up kick. In previous DOAs like DOA4, there were 3 wake-up kicks, a low wake-up kick, a mid wake-up kick, and a high wake-up kick, but I guess the community and the developers felt that made the wake-up kick game too strong, so you only have to worry about mid or low now. Alright, so, but alright, I mean, yeah, in general though, yeah, wake-up kicks can be fairly potent, especially if they connect on a counter hit, though they can be vulnerable to being crushed, which means that they can either end up being like low crushed or mid crushed in this case. Particularly low wake-up kicks are most vulnerable to being low crushed by jump-in attacks that hit mid or hit grounded, like Mila's 3H+K. Like with Momoji, like a good low crush with her would be like her 7K. Like this tends to beat out low wake-up kicks quite well. Oh man. Alright, normally it does beat it out, but I might be doing it a little too early, so it's usually does beat it out. Alright, this set is quite odd. I know with Christie's 7K it tends to beat out low wake-up kicks really well, so I'm surprised that Momoji's doesn't. Oh, Momoji does have another good low crush. Oh, come on. I guess, yeah, a bit of an aspect that I wasn't well displaying there is that when it comes to like punishing wake-up kicks, timing and spacing is important. So I think I might have been a little too close to the opponent there. If you're a little further away, it punishes it a little better, but I guess from a point-blank range, it can be a little riskier, or you just have to do it a bit earlier. Yeah, but you have to just, when you're just messing around with your character, just look for different attacks which can be good against wake-up kicks. Like each characters have their own ones. Like for in Momoji's case, it's her 6k is usually her best low crush, but yeah, it's different for all characters. All right, crushing mid wake-up kicks is a bit trickier since there aren't that many mid crushes in DOA5 in comparison to low crushes. What you'll have to do is find a move that deals about well, more than 20 damage, because wake up kicks deal, I'll show you right now, wake up kicks should deal about 20 damage. Put on the opponents. Yeah, right there, a low wake up kick, 20 damage. And mid wake up kick also. They both do same damage and provide well, as you see right there, it's +9 on if a wake up kick hits you on normal hit, it's +9 on counter hit. They end up giving a +28 advantage stun, and on high counter also +28, but either way, if you get counter hit by a wake up kick, that's a lot of advantage for your opponent. So that's usually what you want to avoid doing. Like getting hit on normal hit by a wake up kick isn't that bad, especially if it pushes you back. But yeah, getting counter hit by them is usually could be a powerful way for the defender to make their mount their comeback and to get their offense going back on you. But just moving along here, there's also technically a way to be able to beat out, like for instance, like a low or more particularly a mid wake up kick. You can actually beat it outright by connecting on the same frame as the wake up kick, but that is actually pretty difficult to do because the timing needs to be like just right. But I'm still just moving along now. An optimal thing to do, usually if you don't want to have to deal with wake-up kicks, is just simply, it's fine to just to back off and let the opponent whiff it. If the opponent does like to do wake-up kicks, so you don't have to worry about guessing to either the low or mid wake-up kick. Like if you know which one they're gonna do, you can anticipate it and can perform like a defensive hold, like a low hold or a mid kick hold. But an option is to also just simply back off and whiff punish it. Like Momoji in particular has a pretty good whiff punisher for wake up kick switches or 6-6 PP. Just have the dummy just do like any wake up kick, let's say a low one. Just have the dummy just do like whatever and back off, then you can whiff punish it with a little juggle. See, as long as you are out of range and have the wake up kick whiff, if you have a relatively quick move like Momoji's 6-6 PP opens at 15 frames. So if you just can get the right spacing, because wake up kicks can reach maybe a little further than it looks, then you can just, if your character has good range, then you can whiff punish them. Yeah, but that's kind of just standard Oki. I mean, like for instance, like I said earlier, at a basic, this is just DOA's Oki at a relatively basic level. I mean, that there's a bit more to the game than just simply you versus the wake-up kick. Although when you're playing DOA 5 or last round online, it can feel like the Oki game is just simply the person who gets the knockdown is just dealing with the wake-up kick. But in general though, it's still the person that got the knockdown that has the control, because especially in offline play, wake-up kicks can become a huge liability if they get abused too much. So finding ways to deal with them should be one of your kind of priorities when starting out to learn DOA5's Oki game. Because I mean, if they technically wake-up kicks are 20 frames, so they are barely reactable. But because there's 2 of them, you still have to guess slightly. But if you do know that an opponent is going to do a wake-up kick, you can, if you're on point, you can be able to react to them. But the opponent can also change the timing on when they get up. They can change the timing on their wake-up kick. So those are things to have to watch out for. But yeah, if you can end up timing like a jump in, well, like an attack that can low crush, but does more damage than wake-up kicks, then it's actually possible to beat out both of them. But the timing to do that can be quite tight, so it can feel like a risk, or it can seem a little risky if the opponent ends up doing they end up like changing up the timing on their attacks. So I mean, yeah, I mean, I'll just say right now that Oki in Dead or Alive 5 and in last round is very, very tricky. It's not simple at all. Anyways, let's go on to the next phase. Alright, let's get some more Halloween costumes going now. Why not? We got some pirates because some reason this year Team Ninja, or for when it comes to Halloween costumes, we always got to have a nice handful of pirates everywhere. I mean, ninjas and pirates, right? What can't go wrong with that? So, anyways, let me lay this down for you guys. Alright, OKIZEME is all about maintaining control, keeping power over your opponent for as long as required to retire them from the match. In DOA 5, Oki's basically occurs after any sort of knockdown, such as that as a result of a critical finish, such as like which is when a premature knockdown ends up exceeding the stun threshold. Like I could end up just showing you just to remind you what that is. You may see there where it says critical damage. Right now for counter hit the maximum says 35. If you end up exceeding that number, then you'll get a critical finish. But it's usually just as a result of doing moves that don't end up launching and just ends up like knocking the opponent over. See right there, when you end up exceeding with Rachel's K, it ends up just knocking down. Whereas if you do it during the stun, it has end up a different effect, so it allows causes a feint stun, but you can still get off a follow-up if you have something that can reach in time. I don't know what can follow up with Rachel for that, but anyways, just moving along now. So the kind of conditions for Oki can start is after a critical finish, a juggle ender grounding the opponent, and the most favorable knockdown for the aggressor is the hard knockdown. Alright, for Oki, you usually want to attempt to set up hard knockdowns. Like I'll show you what a hard knockdown is. Simply it's a knockdown where the opponent they lose the ability to immediately perform a wake-up kick, so you can end up getting off you can end up getting off follow-ups where, or you can usually get off a ground attack right away, and the only way for them to be able to avoid it would be to end up performing like a back tech roll. But even though sometimes, like for instance with like one of Bass's techniques is 6kp. This one, if you can get the time in for his down throw, his 2T called his pickup, and it actually could be guaranteed off of his like 6kp, meaning that the opponent can't. If you get the right time, and the opponent can't tech roll it at all. So some characters have some setups like that. So for characters that have these kind of hard knockdowns, what you can do is instead of ending the juggle with something that leads to a knockback or just a standard soft knockdown, you can opt to end your juggle with a strike or string that sets up a hard knockdown. Unless of course you want that knockback, which is perfectly fine too for strategic purposes. For instance, if you're wanting to do like a keep away game or something of that sort, like with characters like Hitomi, Janli, or Ayane, for instance, you could opt to play, or Ain, you could opt to play a keep away game instead of going for like an Oki based pressure game. But with someone like Rachel or Bass, it's usually beneficial for them to try and score those hard knockdowns for pressure. Alright, so some examples of attacks that can lead to hard knockdowns are the aforementioned Bass's 6kp, which I was showing a little earlier. Bass's well, I could show you another one. Bass's 1pp. Like this one is similar to his 6kp, but it does, because of the increased recovery on the second hit of 1pp, the low throw isn't guaranteed. Because 6kp, if I were to show you here, 6kp has 22 recovery frames, where 1pp has 32 recovery frames. So that's another thing also to pay attention to when you're wanting to like continue pressure, including Oki pressures. How much recovery frames does the attack that you end up throwing out before the opponent gets back up, or the attack that you use to knock him down? Like how much because if you have less recovery frames, you can recover quicker and then take action, whether it is to continue pressure or to try and bait the opponent to throw a wake-up kick or something like that. Alright, but so along with like Bass's 6kp or his 1pp, other moves that can cause hard knockdowns are like Rachel's P+K. See, like with Rachel, if she gets a hard knockdown, she can use what's called her Your Lunger Stomp, or it's also known as the infamous Rachel Stomp. Like with this, she ends up getting she either does something like 6kp. She can get a hard knockdown, which can set up a stomp if the opponent doesn't back tech roll to avoid it. And other moves can also include, along with Bass's 6kp, 1pp, Rachel's P+K or 6pk is also something like Leon's 9p, which is a big jumping attack that low crushes and slams the opponent down hard. Alright, so I mean, these attacks are all hard knockdowns that guarantee follow-ups such as ground grapples. Like, for instance, like Bass's low throw or Rachel's stomp that I was just showing. I mean, these are generally good Oki follow-up attacks to go for if your character has moves of that sort. So for this case, for Bass and Rachel, for instance, hard knockdowns can be very useful for them because their ground throws or ground attacks allow them to maintain offensive pressure on wake-up, effectively vortexing their opponent through the high amount of frame advantage you get from each one. Bass's pickup gives them a plus 13 frame advantage, and Rachel's stomp gives her plus 15. With plus 13 or plus 15, you can pretty much follow up with almost anything except for like really slow moves. So anything that you can even go for attacks that are like over 20 frames against your opponent, for instance. Alright, I'll just let you know what a vortex is a series of attacks that reset the opponent, but with them obviously having a smaller health bar each time, until they make an action that allows them to escape their situation, generally being some sort of hard read. And as I mentioned in a previous session, a hard read is just a pure, unadulterated guess. Like yeah, you're basing it on both the situation and previous tendencies, but when you come down to it, a hard read is still technically a guess. And generally, if you end up guessing wrong on a hard read, then it ends up putting you end up continuing to be in a bad situation, or it couldn't even be in a worse situation. In this case, if you end up guessing wrong on guessing wrong on like a Rachel, on like one of Rachel's vortexes, then that allows her to just keep it going and get even more damage. I mean, you end up missing or guessing incorrectly during a vortex, let's say like even like 2 or 3 times, and that can like cost you the whole match. So I mean, if you're on the defense, yes, you want to try and find your way to avoid vortexes as much as possible. If you're aggressor, you want to get that vortex started as much as possible. So I mean, that's a big part of a kind of a vortex character's game plan, or also called a blender, or just simply a series of resets. So I mean, this is like a certain strategy for these kind of characters, where there's other characters, kind of like Kasumi or Ayane, that can run simply a stun launch game, where you end up when you end up just simply do something like you just stun, then you like launch right away. Like that, for instance, is a stun launch. But luckily with like Rachel, I mean, like Bass is a super heavyweight, so obviously certain juggles don't work as well as him. But against a lightweight character, I mean, for launch characters, like I said earlier, like Ayane or Kasumi, they can just get their damage just from like juggling their opponent, where someone like Rachel gets her damage from resetting the opponent or vortexing. So what she can do is she combines her pressure, her Oki and pressure is basically one big thing. It's her whole vortex system. But although, I mean, if you're interested in looking more into Rachel, then you can kind of like check out what she can do, because she is characters like her and Helena pretty much are very, very potent vortex characters if you're like that sort of playstyle. But yeah, but you may notice that it's usually kind of heavyweight characters that tend to focus around trying to find ways to stay on the offense as much as possible, because they're generally slower than most characters, so they need to work any sort of like advantages they can get. Alright, but I'll move on to show you another kind of a knockdown now. And just switch up another 2 characters. Alright, another type of hard knockdown is which comes after certain juggles, is just simply referred to as like a splat bound. Like if I would see if I could like show you so an example like what a splat bound can look like. Alright, it's when the opponent kind of just splats. It looks like they just kind of splash back with like a huge kind of rollback. Like right there with Christie's PP 2KP, this causes a splat bound. Ayane's PP 6K 2K or just 6K 2K can cause a similar thing, or like Genfu's 1P can cause that. So alright, so what the splat bound is, like you could see it's different to a normal hard knockdown. In this type of ground bound, the opponent, as you can see, was splashing down, and they do have a large amount of invincibility frames during the splat. However, if they don't perform a tech roll, you can generally get a guaranteed follow-up in the form of a free ground hit or a forced tech attack if timed correctly. Just like let you know, or probably just to refresh, a forced tech is any attack that forces the downed opponent up on their feet. I mean, you can do that with like Hitomi's 3H plus K or her 2H plus K sweep, for example. Alright, I already let you know of some attacks that can lead to a splat bound. So, I mean, each character usually has at least one series of attacks that can cause that. And with Christy as the example, her PP2KP is usually her splat bound of choice. Alright, so what I recommend is that you experiment with your character's juggle enders to see like what knockdown properties they may possess. If your opponent chooses to tech roll out of a splat bound, which is usually the wise choice, you'll still be at a considerable frame advantage, as long as you you call out that they do a tech roll and that you don't whiff anything that leaves you at negative frames, of course. So in essence, if the opponent tech rolls, you can still maintain offensive pressure on them since, well, you'll be at frame advantage. For being able to practice any sort of like setups off it, the opponent tends to, with the default way how the opponent is, they tend to get up right away, so I usually just set it so they end up laying down just the whole time. So if you end up hitting the opponent right as they lay down, you can end up getting a follow-up ground attack on them. Because if you can get the right timing, it will even beat out their opportunity to even wake up kick you. But yeah, if you do attack too early, then the move will end up going through them. Although sometimes what I can even do if I suspect the opponent might tech roll and like push buttons is you can end up just throw out a move where you end up recovering before they would end up finishing their wake up kick, and you can end up like usually what I do with most characters is if someone gets a knockdown, I might like just like whiff a 2P. Then if they do a wake up kick, you can still defend against it. So what it is simply doing is just throwing out a move which recovers fast enough so you're able to to take another action. But yeah, with these kind of splat bounds, you do have to time the ground follow up to come out before they're able to take any action if they choose not to tech roll. If they end up do a tech roll in it, then you just have to work the frame advantage. So I'll just kind of show you a little bit like what that can look like. See right there, so if the opponent does a tech roll, see, well right here you'll see at worst they'll be at neutral because the opponent didn't throw anything out, but generally, if the opponent does try and attack, they will be attacking at a disadvantage because of the kind of frames required for recovery during the tech roll. But generally speaking, it's simply a case of if they tech roll, you pressure, and if they lay on the ground, you go for a ground hit or a force tech. And generally the largest benefit to trying to achieve a hard knockdown is the fact that it completely removes the ability for the opponent to perform a wake-up kick. So with like a hard knockdown, well, with the kind of hard knockdowns I showed earlier with Rachel Bass, or the kind of splat bound I showed with Christy, both of them take away the opponent's ability to perform a wake-up kick. But I mean that means it pretty much gets the only option they have is either lay on the ground and hope you whiff something, or to perform a tech roll. But as I kind of implied earlier, a tech roll won't let them escape your pressure if you like call them out on it and you choose to use the frame advantage to pressure them more continuously. Because that's basically your goal, of course, is to Your goal is to find a way to minimize your opponent's ability to kind of fight back with a wicked kick while trying to maintain pressure as much as you can. Overall, I'd say that OKIZEME is strongest when it's at a wall, when the opponent's backed into a corner, because the pressure is heavy on them and the stakes are higher due to the kind of potential heavy wall damage you can do to them, and the lack of space for them to be able to like mount to escape. Like I said in the last session, with wall pressure, basically in terms of environmental control, your first goal is to try and see if you can get away opponent either knocked into a corner or more specifically knocked in front of a wall. I'll even show you like basically with well, I said in the pressure section that you can end up like maintaining pressure at the wall, and also the opponent doesn't have the ability to do a back tech roll because they don't really have any space to be able to do that. So they're most likely going to do a side roll. So some of them may just opt to stay down on the ground, and you can just simply force tech them, for instance, and like keep them in the corner. But I'll even show you like a couple some cool things that even some characters like Mila can do. Like Mila is a character where Oki does tend to work in her favor quite a lot. The first example, well, this is only a half wall, so I usually practice it on a full wall, but so a half wall the time might be a bit different, but yeah, it may not work on a low wall. But the main idea is that you can kind of option select an opponent that either tech rolls or ends up just laying on the ground. What the idea is after a wall juggle, if you do a move that's around 14 or 15 frames, if they lay on the ground, then you can end up 2T'ing them. And I might need to find a full wall. See if I can find a full wall just to demonstrate. Yeah, this one's also a high wall. What it is that you should be able to get a ground throw if you can get the right timing. Yeah, see, for a low wall for Mila, it's usually you do a 2K, then you can do a 2T. But for a half wall, the opponent falls faster, so you have to end up going for a faster lead-in move. Yeah, so right there, that's different things you can try, and also you can get I mean, Mila's 3H plus K can set up a ground, pretty much a guaranteed ground throw. Like I think I can check to see if the opponent can back tech roll it, but I do suspect that they may not be able to. Yeah, I think it might be guaranteed. Another kind of a setup also can be well, except for this is assuming that the opponent doesn't tech roll. See, another thing is that Mila can use her 2P on an airborne opponent to set up like can use it to set up her mount stance. Like that, for instance. So if you do like having a strong Oki game, Mila's is another good option, and she's not necessarily particularly difficult to use, but she does have a good balance between strikes and grapples and Oki options. All right, and there's also another aspect to Oki, which is actually probably one of the most kind of difficult aspects to get a handle on, is that on wake up, there's actually a small window where you can actually mount what's called an unholdable. This is when an attack connects on an opponent as soon as they get up, but during the initial frames of the wake up where they're not able to perform a defensive hold yet. They are still able to block, so be careful if you're trying to use an unsafe move as unholdable, since obviously if they block it, they can end up throw punishing you if you use something that's about -8 or worse. So for an unholdable, you should generally, well, if you can, use something that's frame advantage or neutral. Alright, I'll just see if I can show a demonstration, even though it's actually pretty much like a just frame. It's pretty much like a just frame technique, so you have to be able to do it like right away. Yeah, it is. The timing is particularly difficult. Oh, well, I got it right there, but the timing can be pretty difficult. You see, if you end up getting it correctly, as soon as they get up, if they're not blocking, they'll just get hit. Because the only option they have to avoid that when they're getting up is simply to block. You are able to do it off of a tech roll, like for the opponent. The opponent just simply gets up like. Yeah, see, it can be tough to get the time because you pretty much have to get the frame like spot on. But yes, but that's another thing to look into if you want for Oki pressure, is being able to try and like mount unholdables. Like with well, if for an example, trying to use like Christie's trying to use her 4P plus K, if you can get the timing, which is I think I'm doing a little late. Oh wow, yeah, see, it can be, yeah, like I said, it is really difficult to do, but it is another thing to look into, and it's probably one of the definitely more advanced tactics in DOA. But as you can see just through this session, that Oki in general is one of the most challenging things to get a handle on in DOA, because there's a lot of little things to kind of there's a lot of like little things to have to note, and usually the timing on techniques can be fairly tight or like space independent, different things like that. So, but if you can get a handle on your opponent, then you can maintain power in matches. You can maintain power in matches really well. Anyways, that'll end up doing it for this session. Thanks for tuning in. And don't forget to rate and subscribe and leave any comments below to let you know, just to let you know how things are going, and to say what your favorite Halloween costume is. Like, I particularly love Phase 4. It's just such a pain. I don't know how the hell to use her properly. I mean, but yeah, but that's definitely very lucky for Phase 4 users. Like I don't mind this one with Christy, even though I wish her kind of draping wasn't really so see-through, because it kind of makes the bottom part of the costume look a little silly. But she's been kind of overdue for kind of a Snow White bitch kind of outfit. But anyways, yeah, check out the Halloween costumes. Some of them are actually pretty awesome. Like Ione's is pretty cool also. So yeah, check it out. So thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time on Top Tier Tips.